Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Trustwave podcast. What we're going to do today is really deep dive into the technology industry, how to find a job, what are the critical skills required, and how you can get your start. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the wonderful Shirley Strachan, who is the Microsoft Partner Strategy Lead for the Security Solutions practice within Microsoft. And what we're going to do today is really start to deep dive into, what did her journey look like entering the cybersecurity industry? What was her inspiration? And then how did she move laterally into such an incredible position within Microsoft? So first of all, Shirley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Absolutely. So let's dive in, right? And let's start at the very beginning. So, Shirley, from your perspective, who or what really inspired you into the technology industry in the first place? And how did you get your start?
So, as a young child, I actually loved mathematics, which everybody goes, really? And I used to go and ask the teacher for more, right? Growing up, that was still very much more a thing that boys did. But as I progressed through school and got to the point of college, there was a new concept, an innovative concept being developed in colleges. And there was a college that was put together, which was arts and technology focused. And I chose to enter that college and follow a path in maths, statistics, and computing. And this was before STEM was a thing, right? And they also had another interesting concept, which was a year out in industry. And so when I joined the college, I went through my first 3 years doing programming and all of that sort of stuff. And then I entered the industry for my year out in industry. And, that gave me insight to, I don't have to be in a dark room coding, right? There's many more aspects to how you can participate in the world of technology that were more aligned to my key strengths. And so, I went back, did my final year, and then I rejoined that company. And started in the field of technology, primarily in the area of sales and building relationships and talking to people about how technology could bring value to their business versus sitting in a dark room coding. I've never really looked back. And I think that my journey has taken me from mainframe to Unix to PC to smartphones to wearables. And now with the advent of AI, the one constant has been change. And I think being adaptable has been a critical part of why I've been able to be successful and being able to embrace that change and, go with that change and do the learning that's necessary to keep up and stay on top and just keep progressing as the technology evolution has progressed.
And it's so fascinating because I think, everyone thinks that journey into a career is so linear, right? Mm-hmm. But actually, you started technical, you experienced what it was like to work in an organization and really started to hone in on your specific skills that were going to make you happy and successful, right? Yes. And I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. But Shirley, from your perspective, Microsoft are a huge organization. Yep. And you see hundreds, if not thousands of graduates through your doors every year. What skills do you think are essential in, the technology industry? And where can people really start on that journey?
Yeah, I would say the one constant is change, right? I just talked about the evolution of technology. We see a continued evolution. We're talking about quantum computing now as well and other things. So the one constant is change. So I would say a passion for learning and being willing to put the work in to learning and being on top of what's coming is absolutely critical. And the more crucial skill than any of the soft skills that you might think of, whether you have a programming degree or a math and stats and computing like I had, it's not the key thing. It really is that ability to learn. So take advantage of all those learning opportunities. Within Microsoft, we offer so many learning programs, but there's so many available in many other places as well. With Microsoft, our mission, as you know, is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. With the advent of cybersecurity, it's now about how do we do that in a safe and secure way. And there are so many avenues within what that means. So do explore.
I love that. So it's constant curiosity, find the thing that you love, find the thing that is inspirational for you, and then really start to dig into that. And I think it's such valuable advice because, we all, quite often people will find roles and they stick there, right?
Yeah.
Because, it's a great role. But I think, there is so much more to go out there and explore in cybersecurity, and genuinely a job for everybody, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, my passions have always been around people, building relationships, being able to articulate the value that technology can bring to a business. So I've always gravitated towards the sales arena or working with partners like yourselves to how we can deliver the value to our customers. And I would say that, my career has been in that field, but it's been in numerous geographies, in numerous different roles. And so I've been able to still have, the variety. They say variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
I've been able to have that variety and really enjoyed my journey and never really looked back. And we'll continue to take that journey.
And I think, just taking a step back, if we look at the cybersecurity industry as a whole, Microsoft are absolutely a heavyweight in the cybersecurity industry. 860,000 customers protected. You're leading all of those quadrants. You've got such a strong investment into cybersecurity as well. So 20 billion plus committed in the way of funding. If we're actually looking at, how that applies to different roles that people could consider within the cybersecurity industry, and then really, how does diversity in the way that we hire really have an impact in the industry, and what can that bring for us? So, what type of roles, and then what impact can diverse hiring have?
Right. Yeah. So, when you think about Microsoft's mission, which is to, deliver the value of technology to every person and every organization on the planet. And now as we look at, the advent of the hackers and the people who bring ransomware, it's how do we do that in a safe and secure way, right? And when you look across the world and you look at the different cultural aspects of how people apply technology, how they're using it, it's important to be able to bring the diversity to how we implement and how do we make sure that it's available to every person, regardless of the differences that we have, whether those differences are cultural, whether it's gender, whatever those distinctions happen to be. It's how do we make that accessible for everybody? And that for us is extremely important. And it's why we actually create what we call resource groups inside of Microsoft, where people can get together and share ideas, exchange kind of different information, and really make it easy for people of different backgrounds, different cultures, different genders, whatever that happens to be, to operate in an environment where they can be in an environment where they can thrive and they can work with peers. Our women's groups, for example, Tech Her has been built to enable an environment where women can really learn, they can thrive, they can network with other women, they can see how other women have been successful. It goes from the most junior to the most senior people, and this is also a way that people in their early starting career can also develop mentorships with people they feel safe with, if you know what I mean. And so I think, diversity is critical to how do we make sure technology works for everybody. And, there are so many aspects to that.
Absolutely. And I think, success and seeing other people's success really breeds success, right? And,
Yes.
Things like the Tech Her program from Microsoft. Obviously, I've done my homework, 4,000 people, in the government in the UK trained, 4,000 women
Yes.
in the government in the UK trained last year. So, what an incredible program to bring, different cultures, different backgrounds together. And then, really the country really benefiting from that experience as well. But you mentioned such a great point around mentorship, right? And I think, we're kind of fast forwarding. So you're kind of taking your first steps into the role, but a mentor can really start to shape your career either in the present or start to help you shape your career in the future.
Yeah.
But quite often you're more junior, your mentor is more senior. How do you really start to have a conversation with that person? How do you approach them? So, Shirley, from your perspective, who has been a leading light for you throughout your career, and how have you actually engaged with them for success?
Yeah. I mean, I've had many mentors throughout my career, some short term, some long term. I think you have to determine what is it you want from that mentor, right? And for me as well, I think the value of a mentor is that as a mentee, you also bring something of value to them as well, right? So whenever I met with any of my mentors, I always had something that I could share with them too, that would maybe add some value. But I've had mentors from people who are way more senior than me. I've had male mentors, female mentors. I've had mentors who live in different geographies to where I'm actually based. I've had mentors who are more junior to me because I want to understand kind of how they see things and what can I do better as a manager by understanding where they see the challenges as well. So I think there is no kind of specific thing that you can say, oh, a mentor must be somebody who's senior to you and who can actually help you grow in your career. It's more about, I think, understanding what you need from that mentorship, and then picking mentors based on that. So I think sometimes people have this idea that your mentors should be somebody senior, somebody who's going to just drive career progression. I think there's so much more to it than that. And I currently today mentor people who are based in Asia. I mentor people who are based in the US, who are based in EMEA. We're not limited by geography anymore either. Make sure you are clear on what you're looking for, and then leverage the people who you trust and know to say, who would be the best person to provide me what I'm looking for here, and let them help you to find the right mentors.
I love that, Shirley. And I think it's really challenging the way that we look at mentorship, right? I think we all have kind of a preconceived idea of how this should work, right? Yeah. And I think, great advice on it being bi-directional, right? What can you do to help that person? What can that person do to help you? And then looking at a mentorship, not only as career progression, right? But how can you build your skills? Yeah. And I think that's something we overlook so many times, right? Is there's so much value from building those relationships, understanding other parts of the business, then really starting to bring that into, who you are and what you do. So such an incredible response. Thank you so much for that one, Shirley. So sadly, this is our last question, right? But it's a bit of hypothetical because obviously we're talking about mentorship. And I know you've had such an incredible career throughout the IT and the tech industry, Shirley. So I'd love to ask you, if you were your mentor 20 years ago, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say be bold in your ambitions. I always tell my kids, you can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to put your mind to it, right? And it's if you don't put your mind to it, you'll fail. So be bold in your ambitions. Go after what you want. Don't let other people's prejudices hold you back. That's their problem, not yours, right? And I think that has been my approach. And so I've never been afraid to take that next leap. Not saying I'm not nervous when I do it, and I'm not concerned that, hey, maybe I'll fail, but, failure is okay too, because you learn from failure. I think that would be my thing. And the other thing I would say is, people go, oh, as a woman in tech, have you had challenges and has it been a problem? And, one of, not somebody I've spoken to, but somebody who I see as a mentor in a different way, is Maya Angelou. And I always think of her poem, Phenomenal Woman. I am a woman and I'm a phenomenal woman. And I don't need to hide that. And so be your authentic self as a woman. Don't feel like you have to mask your femininity to succeed in business. It's a part of who you are. And I found that being my authentic self has always been the best approach in the long run.
So be bold, be authentic, challenge the status quo, and most importantly, be yourself.
Yes.
Right?
And don't be afraid to take risks and don't be afraid to fail occasionally. We all do. And you learn.
I really appreciate your time, Shirley, and thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you being so transparent about your journey, who you are, what really drives you. And then hopefully everyone today has been able to take away some of these incredible top tips and apply that into the cybersecurity industry. But I want to thank everybody so much for joining in today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Shirley with us. We really look forward to seeing you for the next session, and have a great rest of day.